You're in a conversation with someone who can't grasp what you're saying, not because you're being unclear, but because they literally lack the cognitive architecture to process the idea. You simplify, you use analogies, you try different angles. Nothing lands. And then comes that familiar realization. They're nodding along, but there's nobody home. Here's what nobody tells you about being intelligent. It doesn't make life easier. It makes it lonelier, more painful, more exhausting. Think about your last conversation where you had to dumb yourself down just to connect. Think about how many times you've bitten your tongue because explaining would be futile. Think about the isolation that comes from seeing patterns, implications, and contradictions that others simply cannot perceive. Most people think intelligence is a gift. Schopenhauer knew better. He understood that cognitive capacity isn't a blessing, it's a curse wrapped in awareness. The smarter you are, the more you suffer. Not despite your intelligence, but because of it. This isn't about feeling superior. This is about understanding why your brain, the very thing that should give you an advantage, often feels like a prison. Why you can't just be happy like everyone else. Why small talk feels like cognitive waterboarding. Why you're exhausted by interactions that energize others. Schopenhauer spent his life examining this brutal truth. Intelligence amplifies suffering. The more you understand, the more you see, and the more you see, the heavier the weight becomes. So let's be honest about what it actually costs to be intelligent, because once you understand the mechanism, you can stop fighting it and start navigating it.
Here's the first cost. You can't unsee what you see. Your brain doesn't just process information, it extracts patterns, predicts outcomes, identifies contradictions, automatically, constantly, without your permission. While everyone else watches a movie, you're deconstructing the plot holes. While they enjoy a conversation, you're tracking logical fallacies. While they relax into comfortable beliefs, you're plagued by inconsistencies. Schopenhauer wrote, "Talent hits a target no one else can hit. Genius hits a target no one else can see." But here's what he didn't add. Once you see that target, you can't stop seeing it, even when you desperately want to. Think about the last time someone shared an opinion that was demonstrably wrong, not subjectively different, objectively flawed. Maybe they misunderstood causation. Maybe they generalized from a sample size of one. Maybe they confused correlation with causation. You saw it immediately. The error was glaring, obvious, painful to witness. And what did you do? If you're intelligent, you probably stayed silent because you've learned that correcting people doesn't make them grateful, it makes them defensive. You've learned that being right often costs you socially. You've learned that your perception is a liability in group settings. This is the intelligence trap. Your mind won't let you ignore what it perceives, but expressing what you perceive alienates you from others. You're stuck between intellectual honesty and social belonging. And unlike those with average intelligence, you can't simply choose not to notice. Your brain doesn't have an off switch. Schopenhauer observed, "The majority of men are not capable of thinking, but only of believing, and are not accessible to reason, but only to authority." This isn't elitism, it's observable reality. Most people don't arrive at beliefs through analysis. They absorb them from their environment, their tribe, their comfort zone. And when you approach life analytically, you're fundamentally incompatible with this majority. You notice the contradictions in their beliefs. You see the motivated reasoning. You recognize the cognitive biases. Not because you're trying to, but because your brain is wired to detect these patterns. It's like being the only sober person at a party. Everyone else is having fun in their altered state, and you're acutely aware of how silly it all is. The cost? Perpetual alienation. You can't join them in their comfortable illusions because you see through them, and they can't join you in your analysis because they lack the tools. You're separated by cognitive architecture, not choice. This is why intelligent people often feel like outsiders in their own species. Not because they're antisocial, but because their perception creates an unbridgeable gap. You're living in a different reality, not a better one necessarily, but a more complex, more contradictory, more exhausting one. And there's no way back to ignorance.
Now for the second cost. You're surrounded by people who don't know what they don't know. The Dunning-Kruger effect, the cognitive bias where incompetent people overestimate their abilities, isn't just an interesting psychological phenomenon. For intelligent people, it's a daily nightmare. Because while you're plagued by awareness of how much you don't know, the less competent are supremely confident in their limited understanding. Schopenhauer explained it long before psychology named it. The fool is convinced he is right, while the wise man is full of doubts. But here's the brutal implication. In most social contexts, confidence wins. Not competence, not accuracy, confidence. Think about every meeting you've attended where the loudest voice prevailed despite being demonstrably wrong. Think about every group decision that went against logic because someone charismatic pushed their flawed idea with certainty. Think about how often you've remained silent because challenging the confident fool would require an exhausting explanation that probably wouldn't work anyway. You know what's happening. You see the flawed logic. You can predict the outcome. But you also know that pointing this out will make you the problem, not their reasoning. So you watch, powerless, as preventable mistakes unfold. This is the Dunning-Kruger Hell for intelligent people. You're cursed with the awareness that most people's confidence is inversely proportional to their understanding, and you can't fix it. Because the very ignorance that makes them confident also prevents them from recognizing expertise when they encounter it. Schopenhauer wrote, "A man can be himself so long as he is alone, and if he does not love solitude, he will not love freedom, for it is only when he is alone that he is really free." This isn't misanthropy. It's a recognition that intelligence creates incompatibility with group dynamics. When you're intelligent, you notice. The person who's never studied economics has the strongest opinions on monetary policy. The person who's never read philosophy is certain about the nature of reality. The person who struggles with basic logic is supremely confident in their conspiracy theory. And here's the kicker. They're happier than you. Their ignorance is bliss. Your knowledge is burden. You can't explain to them why they're wrong because they lack the foundational knowledge to understand the explanation. It's like trying to teach calculus to someone who hasn't mastered arithmetic. The gap is too wide. The effort is too great. And even if you tried, their confidence would interpret your correction as arrogance, not help. So you retreat. You stop engaging in debates. You stop offering insights. You learn to smile and nod while internally screaming. Because the alternative, constantly fighting the confident incompetent, is even more exhausting than silent observation. This is the second cost of intelligence. You're outnumbered by people who are wrong and don't know it. And their confidence makes them louder, more influential, and more socially successful than you. The intelligent suffer in silence, while fools lead with certainty.
The third cost, and it's the most painful, intelligence destroys your capacity for simple happiness. You weren't built to be happy. You were built to want, and wanting is suffering. Schopenhauer understood this at a fundamental level. Life swings like a pendulum backward and forward between pain and boredom. But for intelligent people, this pendulum swings faster and with greater amplitude. Why? Because your intelligence won't let you rest in satisfaction. Think about the last time you achieved something. Maybe you got a promotion, finished a project, reached a goal. How long did the satisfaction last? A day? An hour? Before your mind moved to the next problem, the next inadequacy, the next challenge? This is hedonic adaptation, the psychological phenomenon where you quickly return to a baseline level of happiness, regardless of positive changes. But for intelligent people, this experience more acutely because their analytical minds won't allow them to simply enjoy without questioning, without contextualizing, without seeing the temporary nature of the satisfaction. You get the promotion, and immediately your brain calculates, this doesn't change the fundamental meaninglessness of corporate hierarchies. You finish the project, and you're already aware of its limitations. You reach the goal, and you recognize it was arbitrary to begin with. Schopenhauer wrote, "We seldom think of what we have, but always of what we lack. Therefore, rather than grateful, we are bitter." For intelligent people, this isn't pessimism, it's unavoidable. Your brain is wired to analyze, to critique, to identify flaws, and that wiring doesn't turn off for your own achievements. Meanwhile, someone with average intelligence can enjoy their promotion without existential analysis. They can feel proud without deconstructing the social construct of achievement. They can be happy without their mind immediately undermining the emotion with philosophical context. You can't. Here's why mainstream happiness advice fails for intelligent people. Practice gratitude. You do, but your mind immediately adds context that diminishes it. Live in the moment. Your brain is literally incapable of not analyzing and projecting. Don't overthink it. That's like telling someone to don't breathe. Your intelligence is a happiness-destroying machine. It contextualizes every joy until it becomes trivial. It analyzes every pleasure until it reveals its temporary nature. It deconstructs every achievement until it exposes its arbitrary foundation. And here's the cruelest part. You're aware of this process while it's happening. You know your mind is sabotaging your happiness. You can observe the mechanism in real time, but you can't stop it, because stopping it would require cognitive abilities you don't possess, the ability to not think deeply. Schopenhauer observed, the more intelligent a man is, the more originality he discovers in people. Ordinary people see no difference between men. But the reverse is also true. The more intelligent you are, the more suffering you discover in existence. Ordinary people see simple pleasures. You see temporary distractions from inevitable suffering. This is the third cost. Your intelligence has severed your access to simple contentment. You're too aware, too analytical, too pattern-seeking to ever rest in uncomplicated happiness. The fourth cost. Most human interaction becomes cognitively exhausting. Small talk isn't just boring for you, it's painful. It's like cognitive waterboarding. You're trapped in a conversation about weather, weekend plans, or celebrity gossip while your mind is screaming for substance, for depth, for meaning, and you can't escape without seeming rude or arrogant. Schopenhauer wrote, "We forfeit 3/4 of ourselves in order to be like other people." For intelligent people, this forfeiture happens in every social interaction. You're constantly compressing yourself, simplifying your thoughts, pretending to care about topics that bore you to tears. Think about your average workday conversation. Someone talks about their weekend. You're expected to engage. You're expected to care. You're expected to reciprocate with equally superficial details about your own life. And if you try to steer the conversation toward anything substantive, philosophy, science, complex ideas, you see their eyes glaze over. You violated an unspoken social contract. Keep it light, keep it simple, keep it shallow. This creates a devastating choice: authenticity or connection. You can be yourself and be alone, or you can play the role and be included. Most intelligent people oscillate between these options, never quite comfortable with either. Here's what happens in your brain during small talk. You're tracking the conversation, low cognitive load.
You're simultaneously aware of how meaningless it is, meta-analysis. You're monitoring your performance to ensure you seem normal, social calculation. You're suppressing the topics you actually want to discuss, self-censorship. You're calculating when you can politely exit, escape planning. You're running 5 cognitive processes where others are running 1. No wonder you're exhausted. Schopenhauer understood, a man can be himself only so long as he is alone, because being yourself around others requires them to operate at your cognitive level, and statistically, most don't. The bell curve of intelligence means that if you're genuinely intelligent, you're in the minority. Most people you encounter will be intellectually incompatible with your natural mode of thinking. This isn't about superiority, it's about compatibility. Just as someone who only speaks Mandarin can't have deep conversations with someone who only speaks Spanish, you can't have intellectually stimulating conversations with people who lack the cognitive tools to engage with complex ideas. So you adapt. You learn the art of the surface-level interaction. You master the performance of seeming interested in topics that bore you to tears. You become bilingual, fluent in both depth and shallowness, and you deploy whichever the situation demands. But this adaptation comes at a cost. You're never fully yourself in most interactions. You're always performing, always compressing, always pretending to be simpler than you are. And after enough years of this, you might forget what it feels like to have a conversation that requires dumbing yourself down. The 4th cost of intelligence? Most human connection requires you to disconnect from yourself. And the loneliness of that is profound.
The 5th cost. You see the consequences before they arrive. Your intelligence allows you to model future scenarios, to extrapolate from current trends, to predict outcomes with uncomfortable accuracy. Sounds useful, right? It's torture. Because while others make decisions based on immediate gratification or short-term thinking, you're trapped in a web of long-term implications. You see the downstream effects. You recognize the unsustainable patterns. You predict the inevitable failures, and you're powerless to stop most of them. Schopenhauer wrote, "After your death, you will be what you were before your birth." This cosmic perspective, seeing beyond the immediate moment, is the hallmark of philosophical intelligence. But it's also a curse. Because once you can think in these terms, you can't stop thinking in these terms. Think about the last time someone made a decision you knew would fail. Maybe a friend entered an obviously doomed relationship. Maybe a colleague pursued a flawed strategy. Maybe a family member made a financial choice with predictable negative consequences. You saw it coming. You probably even mentioned it, gently, carefully, trying not to seem condescending. They didn't listen. They couldn't see what you saw. And when the predictable outcome arrived, they were shocked. You weren't. You'd been watching the train wreck in slow motion for months. This is the burden of foresight. You're cursed with Cassandra's gift, accurate predictions that no one believes. Because your ability to model complex systems, to see second and third order effects, to recognize patterns, is incompatible with how most people make decisions. They ask, will this make me happy now? You automatically calculate, what are the long-term implications? What am I not seeing? What's the opportunity cost? What's the likely outcome in 6 months, a year, 5 years? This doesn't make you better at life. It makes you worse at living. While others act decisively on limited information, you're paralyzed by awareness of uncertainty. While they enjoy the present moment, you're running simulations of future scenarios. While they make choices and move forward, you're trapped in analysis. Schopenhauer observed,
We seldom think of what we have, but always of what we lack. For intelligent people, this extends to time itself. You're seldom present in the current moment because your mind is already in the future, calculating, predicting, preparing for outcomes that may never arrive. Here's what this costs you. Spontaneity. You can't just do it because you see too many variables. Optimism. You've predicted too many failures to maintain naive hope. Peace. Your mind won't stop running scenarios even when you're exhausted. Joy. You can't fully enjoy present pleasures because you see their temporary nature. And the cruelest irony, your predictions are often wrong anyway. Not because you're bad at analysis, but because complex systems have emergent properties that resist prediction. So you suffer the burden of foresight without even the compensation of accuracy. You're trapped between knowing enough to worry and not knowing enough to be certain. It's cognitive purgatory. The fifth cost of intelligence. You can't escape into the present because your mind insists on living in multiple futures simultaneously.
Now you understand the costs. Perpetual perception, Dunning-Kruger Hell, happiness destruction, conversational exhaustion, and the burden of foresight. So what's the path forward? Not the path you want, not the comfortable solution, the Schopenhauerian path, acceptance. You cannot become less intelligent. You cannot unsee what you see. You cannot dumb yourself down permanently without destroying yourself. So stop trying. Stop fighting against your own cognitive architecture. Stop pretending you can be like everyone else. Schopenhauer's philosophy isn't about finding happiness. It's about navigating suffering intelligently. And that starts with accepting that your intelligence makes you fundamentally different from most people. Not superior, different, incompatible. Here's what acceptance actually looks like. First, stop expecting most people to understand you. They can't. It's not their fault. It's not your fault. It's statistical reality. The bell curve means most people you encounter will be intellectually incompatible with your natural mode of thinking. Accept this. Stop being hurt by it. Stop trying to force connection where cognitive architecture makes it impossible. Second, cultivate selective engagement. You don't need to connect with everyone. You need to find the rare few who operate at your level. This might mean having 3 deep friendships instead of 30 shallow ones. This might mean spending more time alone than is socially acceptable. Schopenhauer was right. A man can be himself only so long as he is alone. Solitude isn't punishment, it's refuge. Third, reframe your intelligence. Stop seeing it as a gift that should make life easier. It's a tool with specific costs and specific benefits. The benefit is clear perception. The cost is perpetual awareness of uncomfortable truths. You can't have one without the other. Accept both. Fourth, develop meta-awareness. When your mind is destroying your happiness through analysis, observe it. Don't fight it. Watch it. Schopenhauer understood that the intellect is a tool of the will, not the master. When you can observe your own mental processes, you create space between you and your thoughts. The suffering doesn't disappear, but your relationship to it changes. Fifth, find meaning in understanding, not happiness. You're not built for simple contentment. You're built for comprehension. So stop chasing happiness and start pursuing understanding. Read philosophy, study systems, analyze patterns. Your intelligence craves depth. Feed it. The satisfaction isn't the same as happiness, but it's more sustainable. Sixth, protect your energy ruthlessly. Every conversation that requires you to dumb yourself down drains you.
Every social performance costs cognitive resources. You have less energy than you think because you're running multiple mental processes simultaneously. Be selective about where you invest your limited reserves. Schopenhauer wrote, "Life is a constant process of dying." For intelligent people, this includes the death of illusions, of comfortable beliefs, of simple solutions. But death of illusion is also birth of clarity. You can't escape your intelligence, but you can stop fighting it. You can stop expecting it to deliver happiness. You can stop pretending to be something you're not. The path forward isn't about becoming less intelligent. It's about becoming more accepting of what intelligence actually costs.
Here's what Schopenhauer understood that most philosophers miss. Suffering isn't a bug in the system, it's the system itself. And intelligence doesn't free you from suffering. It clarifies it, it amplifies it, it makes it inescapable. You weren't given intelligence as a gift, you were given it as a condition of existence, and that condition comes with costs that no one warned you about. The isolation is real, the exhaustion is real, the inability to just be happy is real, the gap between you and most people is real, and no amount of positive thinking, gratitude practice, or mindfulness meditation will make it disappear. Accept it. You will spend most of your life surrounded by people who cannot understand you. Accept it. You will see problems others can't see and be unable to convince them. Accept it. You will deconstruct your own happiness before you can fully enjoy it. Accept it. You will be exhausted by interactions that energize others. Accept it. You will predict outcomes that others won't believe until they experience them. Accept it. But here's the liberation hidden in this darkness. Once you accept these costs, you stop fighting them. You stop wondering why you're different. You stop trying to force yourself into a mold that was never designed for you. You stop expecting intelligence to deliver what it cannot deliver. Schopenhauer wrote, "The wise have always said the same things, and fools, who are the majority, have always done just the opposite." You are not in the majority. You never will be. And that's not a flaw, it's a feature of your cognitive architecture. Your intelligence is both your curse and your dignity. It isolates you, but it also gives you access to truths that others will never perceive. It destroys simple happiness, but it offers complex understanding. It exhausts you, but it also defines you. The final truth is this: you cannot change what you are. You can only choose how you relate to it. Fight your intelligence, and you'll suffer needlessly. Accept your intelligence, including its costs, and you'll suffer consciously. The suffering doesn't disappear, but your relationship to it transforms. This is the Schopenhauerian path, clear-eyed acceptance of what is without the comfort of what you wish could be. It's not happy, but it's free. And for intelligent people, freedom through understanding is the only sustainable path forward.
If you want to deepen your consciousness and develop the meta-awareness I mentioned, I've created a meditation guide specifically designed for analytical minds. Link in the description. It's not about emptying your mind, it's about observing it without being controlled by it. Write in the comments, "It made sense to me. I want to know this resonated." If you found value in this, share it with someone who needs to hear it. Not everyone, just the few who will actually understand it. You know who they are. Subscribe if you want more Schopenhauerian truth without the sugarcoating. This channel exists for the intelligent minority who'd rather see clearly than feel comfortable. Remember, your intelligence isn't a gift that should make life easier. It's a condition that makes life different. Stop fighting what you are. Start navigating it consciously. The suffering of awareness is the price of understanding. Pay it consciously or pay it unconsciously, but you'll pay it either way. Thanks for watching. Now go be intelligently miserable. It's better than being obliviously happy.